Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. You are listening to Moments with Mike. I am, in fact, Mike. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's program. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, so, before we get started off today, I would just like to moment to express my gratitude to everybody that's been listening and everybody that's given us a chance. I kind of put the word out there when I was starting this, and it's still obviously fairly new. This is only our third episode, and I was getting kind of bummed for a minute because I wasn't getting any feedback, wasn't getting any plays, any streams, or anything like that. But gradually, you guys have shown up and shown out, and I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the love and all the support. I have not got everything all down yet. It's still a learning process for me. But we are going to keep doing this. We're going to make it great, and we are going to go far with it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Please keep up the streams, keep up the likes. It's totally free. Just got to make a Spotify account. That's totally free as well. So again, thank you. So getting into the topic of today's program, I just wanted to talk about and reflect on the benefits and stigmas of therapy. And I actually have a notebook and a pad of paper that I write down what I'm going to talk about each episode and what we're going to get into and discuss. But this one I didn't have wrote down on there for multiple reasons. One, I just didn't think about it. And two, I had a lot of personal, embarrassing, and just not so great experiences with therapy and therapists. But the other day, somebody asked me, somebody that had listened to my podcast, which I was very, very, very grateful for, she asked me if I would be willing to talk about therapy. She stated that she is in therapy, but she is having a very hard time telling her significant other and people that are close to her. She's embarrassed by it. And she did state that it's helped her somewhat, she thinks. So let's talk about that today. Therapy. And therapy can be a lot of different things. Some people paint, and that's their therapy. Some people write music or knit. But when it comes to talking about our problems to other human beings, that's a tough one. That's a very tough thing to do. Just because a lot of time our problems are personal and private. And again, you have to be vulnerable to put yourself out there to discuss those things. So this young lady also asked me what my experiences were with therapy. And me being the ever, always the business minded, I said I'll talk about it on my next episode. You just gotta have to tune in and listen. So let's talk about it, and I hope she's listening. So, how therapy benefited me. I'll start there. In the end, I say the end like my life's over. Not the end. In the beginning, let's start at the beginning. I had a very negative view on therapists and therapy. I didn't think that it was something that was very helpful to people because, well, first I was a teenager, so my thinking was already flawed. I was very young, probably 14 or 15. So anyway, I'll tell you a little story. And side note, on this podcast, a lot of things everything that we talk about, I am going to correlate it with my experience, how I think about it, just to give you that perspective. And I would love for people to call in, to email me, to write me, to give me their perspective, or opposing the views, different of you views, not of views, and we can discuss those. So, like I was saying, I'm gonna equate it to my experience, and so this isn't gospel or anything like that. I'm just telling you my reasoning and what led me to be that way. So, as we kind of talked about before on our last episode, I had a very tumultuous um, childhood, formative years. Um, I was adopted, and my adoption didn't go very well. It didn't go as adoption should, um, and it ended horribly. Um, so I will get into that just to give you a little bit of a background. So when I was about 13, I had been in my adopted home for about 6 years. Um, and I had grown used to it. I kind of accepted it as my life. So one day at the age of 13, we lived in an area where there were a lot of kids. We had moved and we were staying in an apartment complex, and it's the first time in those 6, 7 years um, that I had been adopted into this family that we hadn't lived in a house, where we were very, very locked in and private. So living in this complex, there were a lot of young kids my age, and for the first time, because we lived in a complex in an apartment, it was a lot smaller than our houses. We were allowed to go outside, sit on the porch. The playground was like right outside of our front door, like literally right outside of our front door. And my mother, by adoption, allowed us to go out there. So, being 13, I was at the age where I was very, very interested in young ladies. As a young man, I was interested in girls, opposite sex. And there was this girl out there who used to bring her siblings to the park, or the playground, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, we were in a townhouse on the end, and it was literally right outside our doors. And her name was Trisha, and I had the biggest crush in the world on Trisha. Absolutely loved her. So I got to look forward to the days when Trisha would come down to the park, and we would do anything, or not we, I would do anything that I could to get us outside so that we could talk. So obviously Trisha and I became very interested in each other, very, very, I don't even know, 13, how that goes. Anyway, so one day we were at Walmart's, and I seen Trisha, and I was a shy kid. Like I said, I hadn't had much experience with other people up to that point. I wasn't exposed to a lot of people, especially young people. So I seen Trisha in Walmart at the store, and I said hi to her. She said hi back. We laughed, giggled, whatever. You know how that goes. When we were leaving and putting our groceries in the car, it just so happened that Trisha and her parents were parked right next to us. So I seen her again. I would start talking to her again, asking her how she was, if they plan on coming down to the park later. And my mother, she snapped on me. She was very upset that I was talking to her. She demanded me to stop talking to her and get back to putting our groceries in the car. So embarrassed as I was, I got back to putting our groceries in the car, and we left. We got in the car. We were driving home. The entire way home, she was yelling at me, screaming at me that she didn't give me permission to talk to that girl. How dare I? That she had no interest in me, that I wasn't the type of person that anybody wanted to be friends with. She was just very, very, very vocally abusive. But again, you got to remember, I had been going through this for 6 years now, at least. So I was used to it. What I wasn't used to was being embarrassed in front of somebody I liked. So we got home, we took all of the groceries in the house, carried them in and everything, and then I stepped outside the door. She told me to get in the house, and I said no. I said, I'm not getting in the house. I'm not going back in there. I refused to go in the house, and my life changed forever from that day on. I decided that I wasn't taking it anymore, that I wasn't going to be a part of that anymore. I already felt like I wasn't part of the family, so I didn't feel like I was losing anything. Now, it did upset me because my siblings were still there, and I had become close to them. It was literally just us. So I really didn't want to leave because I didn't want to leave them, but I knew that they'd be okay. So I left. I took off. I went to Trisha's house, and she let me in, and we were talking and blah, 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 until there was a knock on the door, and obviously it was my mother by adoption, because these same siblings that I absolutely love and couldn't stand to be away from told exactly where I was going and how to get there. So anyway, I still didn't go home. The police were called. I refused, and the rest is history. I won't go into all the sordid details of that, but because of those events, I was taken out of my home by adoption, and I was placed back in a foster care. And the home that I went to was a relative of hers. Now, this person I haven't spoken with about the events that I'm talking about, so I'm not sure how they would feel about this. So I'm not going to mention any names, but it was a relative of my mother by adoption, and she agreed to let me live with her because she was just a very, 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 very good woman. To this day, I haven't met anybody near as wonderful as she was. But anyway, she agreed to take me in, which she did. And she tried to give me a normal life. She put me in school. I hadn't been in school since I was 7 or 8, maybe 9. I'd say 9 tops. So she put me in school. And mind you, she was only 21, 22. So you have this 21, 22-year-old young lady trying to take care of a 13-year-old boy. And she didn't have kids. She was in college trying to get her life together and further her life. So I lived with her for quite a while. And then subtly, not suddenly, but subtly, SUBTLY, I started to change. I got very jealous when she got a boyfriend and started giving her boyfriend attention. I didn't like when she left and I was, home by myself. And I started getting very, very angry with her and attempting to challenge her authority at every chance that I got. So, like I said, she put me in school. I was in high school at this time, and I did really well. It had always been, I used to daydream about going to school and being able to be around other children and to interact with other kids. So I was so excited to go to school. Obviously, I got involved with the wrong crowd, and I wanted to be like my friends who I thought didn't have any responsibilities and had normal homes. They could leave whenever they wanted. They could go. They could do whatever they wanted, and I wanted to do whatever I wanted. And the person I was staying with wasn't like that. She was very balanced and very ordered. So I started challenging her. And then one day I ran away from her house. I don't remember exactly why I think she told me I couldn't go to school or something because of how I was acting, and I really wanted to go to school. So I actually ran away the first time to go to school. And so she caught me. Obviously, she didn't let me go to school, and I was very upset. So the next day I ran away, and I I didn't go to school, but I don't know where I went. I just ran away. I got on a bus and went to some friend's house, and they let me stay there for a couple of days. And then I went to another friend's house. And the whole time I don't have any clothes, so I'm not showering, so I stink and I'm dirty. But I'm 13, 14. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm just thinking about not being at home. So obviously, she called whoever you call for children who run away, and they came and got me. They got me from school, and they said, obviously, since I wasn't able to function there, that I wouldn't be able to be with her. So they took me out of her home, and they placed me into another home. And this home was great. I loved it there. It was a whole bunch of kids. A bunch of them were my age. A lot of us went to the same school. And I absolutely loved it. There was structure there. It wasn't as much as before, but there was structure. And I loved it. I felt wanted. I felt like I was part of a family. I felt like this is everything that I was looking for. I had brothers, I had sisters, parents that like gave a damn about me. It's everything I wanted. Then one day when I came home from school, my caseworker was there, and she told me that I was being taken out of the home and I was going to go to a different home in a different city. And it freaked me out. I started crying, and I hadn't cried in years. But I did start crying. I begged her not to take me. I begged my foster mother to let me stay, and she said that I could, but unfortunately that wasn't her decision. And they took me out of that home and placed me in a different one. And when they did that, I just became very rebellious. I stopped going to school. I started smoking and drinking and hanging out all night and getting into fights, run-ins with the law. I didn't care about anything. Didn't care about nothing. Wasn't respecting anybody's authority in any place that I was at. So then that foster mother called my work and was like, "Listen, this kid is horrible. He cannot stay here. He's not staying here. We have other kids here. He's disrupting them. He wants to run the streets. Come get him." So they came and got me, and she told me that she'd give me another chance there if I did what I was supposed to do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And as soon as she left, I didn't. I did whatever I wanted to do, and then I ran away because I knew that they would be coming to get me again, which they did. They came and got me and put me in a lockup facility, a juvenile lockup facility. So before I go further, let me stop and just make a point. The point of the story that I'm trying to tell is that I didn't know how to communicate at that age. I didn't know how to tell the first person I was with that I was traumatized and that I was having some severe issues with dealing with everything that I had been dealing with before. And if I would have been able to do that, or if I knew how to talk, or if I was ever approached to, I think that I would have stayed where I was when I left my mother by adoption's home. I think I would have been okay. But I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know the benefits of opening up to somebody and sharing my thoughts and fears and things of that nature. So that's why I say therapy can be a good space, because had I had the opportunity back then, not saying that I would have taken it, because me knowing me, I probably wouldn't have. But there might have been a skilled therapist out there somewhere that was good enough to get me to open up or get me to get to that point. But I never had the opportunity. And had I had the opportunity, I think my life would have been, I would have avoided a lot of issues that I had by not having that opportunity to express myself. Um, so in my opinion, no matter what it looks like, therapy is always a good thing. Whatever you can do to help yourself in a positive way is a great thing, and you should definitely take advantage of it, because sometimes you need that outside perspective. And like I said, a positive therapy or therapeutic activity, not sticking a needle in your arm to go to drain away the pain or to forget how you feel. Because even though that is a form of therapy, that's not a very healthy form of therapy. But again, this young lady was saying she doesn't understand why it's so embarrassing to her. Like, why is she so embarrassed and ashamed to admit she goes to therapy? And just like I said, some things that you say are not very attractive. Like these memories and stories that I'm telling you guys, I've never told anybody. If you weren't there, if you weren't literally in that situation, you wouldn't know. You would never know this about me. 36 years, nobody knows this except for you guys listening to my podcast. And I'm not saying it for pity or anything. I really hope that my stories and my experiences can inspire somebody. So as much as this is to be inspirational, it's also hopefully somebody can learn something. You hear something, or we can say something to help your situation and better your situation. But embarrassing and ashamed, yeah, that's easy to feel those emotions, because you have to be vulnerable and you have to talk about things that are not so attractive. So fast forward me being placed back into the foster care system and being placed into a group home. Like I was saying with the therapist that was there, I didn't trust her. I just didn't. Even though I had no history of speaking to therapists or anything, I just didn't trust her. To me, you're just another employee here to get a check. So even though when she wasn't working and she'd take me to Meyer or whatever, she was a great person. We'd laugh and joke. As soon as I went to her office, it became two different people. I clammed up, didn't know how to talk. And that was the destruction of so many relationships in my life. And again, like I said before, when we say relationships, we're not just talking about romantic ones or relationships between lovers and partners. I mean relationships as far as the entire spectrum: friends, family, partners, acquaintances. I have ruined and destroyed so many of them because I was not willing to talk. I wasn't willing to open up. I wasn't willing to take that step and be vulnerable, because I felt ashamed and I felt embarrassed as well. Not just because of the things I went through, but because of the simple fact, in order to build a relationship with somebody, you have to allow that other person to know you, to learn you. Otherwise, you really can't say you have a relationship, a significant relationship. And I was not willing to take that step for a very long time, a very, very long time. Sigmund Freud, he had a lot of wacky theories and believed a lot of crazy stuff. But some of the things he believed and some of the stuff he said was spot on. Most of it wasn't, but some of it was. Anyway, he had a daughter. Her name was Anna Freud. And one of her theories was people, I don't know how to say it. It was almost like a self-therapy, not like prep talks, but being your own therapist, which I know sounds crazy, but I actually looked into it, and it is a very interesting topic of subject. Anyway, I'm getting off point here. So back to what I'm saying. Yeah, it sucks, and it is embarrassing, and it's very uncomfortable, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. We have all experienced something and been through something in one way or another. So as embarrassing as it is, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Sometimes you just need to talk. You would be surprised how many times simply talking would save a relationship, or make somebody but give somebody a newfound respect for you, or help somebody to understand you just a little bit better. I feel like in my lifetime, because there's very few to this day, and I'm still working on it. I'm a work in progress too. But there's very few people that I have ever in my life opened up to. And part of doing a podcast like this is, honestly, you don't see anybody. It's easy to talk here to equipment, to somebody that's not in front of you. This is easy. Sitting in front of somebody, explaining your problems, exploring them is not easy. It is necessary. So to the young lady that asked me that question, you feel like a lot of people feel, with ashamed and embarrassed and don't want to tell people, because we don't want people to see us in a negative light. But there is no shame. I'll say it again. No shame in going to therapy or doing therapeutic activities. And you should wear it like a badge of honor. Especially if you gain something from it and you're learning something from those things. Well, once I learned how to take that step to be able to talk to somebody, it did wonders for me. Like I said, I never got to the point where I could just open up and tell my problems and how I felt about them. I never got to that point. But I did get to the point where I could talk about something I didn't understand or that was affecting me to an extent, and listen to other perspectives or other ways to be able to deal with issues. And it helped. So that's the answer to that, in my opinion. Anyway, thanks so much, guys. That's our 30 minutes today. I hope you guys learned something or could glean something from this conversation. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, or viewpoints, please send them to me. The email is mikeyw251987@gmail.com. Again, that email is mikeyw251987@gmail.com. Please feel free to send me anything that you guys want to talk about, or go back to or expand on, and we definitely will. Or you can call in anytime, 989-992-2897, and we can talk about it live, or whatever. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's show, and thank you again, or today's podcast. It's not a show. It's not a show. Thank you again so much for listening and tuning in and supporting this. It's only going to get better. We have a ton of topics and discussions that we're going to have with everybody. So yeah, please feel free to drop me a line or two. I'm excited because we are in the process of getting an email and a number and everything specifically for Moments with Mike, and getting our Facebook page up. So I cannot wait to get that going and to share that with you all. And until then, everybody have a great day, and I cannot wait to talk to you later on. Have a good day, guys.